Welcome to Alien Shadow, if you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines. You're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. For thrilling HFY adventures, join us and be part of the journey. The prisoner in chains. The smoke was still rising from the battlefield when Eli Grant stepped over the broken wall. His boots crushed metal pieces and burnt alien armor. His rifle was tight in his hand, eyes sharp and searching. The enemy had retreated, but Eli knew something felt strange here. His squad was gone, only static on the comms. He was alone in enemy territory, and every shadow felt dangerous. Eli moved slowly into the ruins of an alien building. It looked like a command post or maybe a secret lab. The doors were half melted and lights flickered from broken panels. Then he heard something, not a machine, not a gun. It was a voice, a soft, trembling voice, a whisper full of fear. "Please don't hurt me." Eli raised his weapon and turned the corner quickly. What he saw made him freeze. There in the center of the room was a girl. She was not human, but not like any alien Eli had fought before. Her skin was smooth and violet blue, glowing gently in the dark. Her hair was long and silver, spread out like light across the floor. She wore a torn dress of golden silk covered in dust and blood. Her arms were chained to the wall, her knees on the cold floor. She looked up at him, her eyes wide and shining like stars. "Don't kill me, human," she whispered. "Again. I'll warm your bed." Eli blinked, confused and stunned. Was this a trap, some new trick? But she didn't look like a threat. She looked scared, weak and broken. Still, he didn't lower his gun. "Who are you?" he asked firmly. The girl lowered her head. "I am called Zaril," she said. "I was a princess." Eli stepped closer, careful with every move. "Why are you chained?" he asked. Zaril gave a bitter smile. "Because I'm no longer useful to them," she said. "They feared I would betray them, so they locked me here to die." He looked around the room. It was full of old medical tools, data screens, and a strange smell like burned flesh and chemicals. This was not a normal prison. It looked like a lab for experiments. Eli felt his stomach twist. He lowered his weapon slightly. "What do you mean?" "Warm my bed," he asked, trying to understand. Zaril and LT Unk and GT's eyes met his. "I thought if I offered something personal, maybe you would spare me," she said softly. "I didn't mean to offend." Eli stepped back, unsure what to say. This alien princess didn't act like a warrior or a leader. She acted like someone who had been through too much fear, too much pain. He had seen that look before, on refugees, on prisoners, even on some of his own men. Suddenly, a sound echoed outside, heavy footsteps, multiple boots. The enemy was returning. Eli looked at Zaril, then at the chained cuffs on her wrists. He didn't have much time. "Can you walk?" he asked quickly. She nodded weakly. He ran to the wall, pulled out his knife, and cut the power cable to the chains. Sparks flew and the cuffs popped open. Zaril fell forward into his arms. She was cold, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. "Stay close to me," Eli said, helping her stand. She leaned against him, shaking. "I'll try," she whispered. "Thank you, human." They moved fast, ducking through back halls and tunnels. Eli used his tracker to find an old escape route under the bunker. As they entered the darkness, Zaril stumbled. Eli caught her, then carried her in his arms. "You didn't have to save me," she said. Weakly, I know, he replied, but I couldn't leave you there, behind them. The footsteps grew louder, shouts in. Alien tongues echoed in the halls. They were being hunted, and time was running out. Zariel closed her eyes and held tightly to his chest. You're different from the others, she whispered. You don't treat me like a thing. Eli didn't answer. He just kept moving faster, deeper into the tunnels, carrying the alien girl who once begged for her life in chains. Whatever happened next, his mission had changed. This war was no longer about orders. It was about survival and maybe something more. Escape through fire. Eli ran through the dark tunnel with Zariel in his arms. His boots splashed through water and dust. The bunker was shaking behind them, the sound of boots and shouting growing louder. Zariel's head rested against his chest, her breathing weak and slow. She was losing strength fast. He turned sharply and entered a narrow maintenance shaft. His flashlight flickered, showing broken pipes and wires all around. I need to get us out of here, he muttered. Under his breath, he pulled out a small scanner from his belt. It showed an exit nearby, but also red dots moving fast. Behind them, Zariel opened her eyes slightly. Where are we going? She whispered. Eli looked down, surprised. She could still talk. Somewhere safe. He said, can you walk now? She shook her head slowly. My legs feel like ice. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed through the tunnel. A blast shook the walls and dust fell from the ceiling. They found the tunnel entrance. Eli said, no time to think. He pushed forward, carrying her toward the exit point, but the scanner showed something worse. One of the enemy teams was already moving ahead of them, trying to block the escape route. He had to act fast or they'd be trapped. He stopped beside a sealed panel. It looked like a waste chute, narrow and dangerous, but it might lead outside. It's tight but will fit, he said. Just hold on. He pulled open the hatch and climbed inside, Zariel still in his arms. The shaft was cold and dark, the walls covered in old chemical burn marks. They slid down fast, twisting and turning. Through the pipes, Zariel whimpered as her body slammed gently against the metal. Eli tried to shield her the best he could after what felt like forever. They dropped out onto a rocky ground. Eli landed on one knee, still holding her. He looked around. It was a forest just outside the enemy base. Smoke from the recent battle still hung in the air. But there was no time to rest. A red flare shot into the sky behind them. They know we escaped, he said. We need to disappear. Eli carried Zariel through the forest, following the sound of running water. Soon they reached a stream. He lowered her gently near the bank and splashed water on her face. She gasped and opened her eyes again. You saved me again, she said softly. Eli looked around while she rested. The stream led toward human territory, but it would take hours to reach. He checked his ammo, just 2 clips left. His comms were still dead, alone, no backup, and now carrying a sick alien girl with a past he didn't understand. Why did they lock you up? He asked. You said you were a princess. Zariel sat up slowly, wrapping her arms around herself. I was born to a royal house, she said, but I wasn't strong. Not like my sisters. I was different. They said I was too soft to lead, so they gave me to the warlords as a gift. Eli frowned. They used you? Yes, she whispered, and when they were done, they planned to erase me, but I heard secrets, things they didn't know I could hear, secrets that could end this war. Eli leaned in closer. What kind of Secrets? Zaro looked scared but determined. There's a signal buried deep in their systems, she said. It controls their war machines, and I carry the code in my blood. Eli stared at her. In your blood, she nodded. My father gave it to me as a final gift. Genetic key. Then why didn't you tell anyone? Eli asked. Because to unlock it, she said, I need a human, someone to bond with. Eli went silent. Bond, it explained her strange words. Back in the bunker, she hadn't just been begging to live, she had been trying to survive long enough to finish something important. Zerl and LT Unk and GT's head dropped back. Again, her body shaking. I don't know if I can make it, she whispered. Eli stood up and put his rifle on his back. Then, I'll carry you the rest of the way, he said. We're not done yet. The forest was still burning far behind them, but ahead a new path had begun. A human soldier and an alien princess running from death but walking towards something even bigger, not just survival but maybe the end of the war. The princess's secret. The night sky was filled with stars. Eli sat beside the small campfire he had built near a fallen tree. Zaro lay wrapped in his jacket, resting on a soft patch of moss. Her breathing was steady now, but she still looked pale and weak. He kept his rifle nearby, always watching, always listening. They had made it deep into the forest, far from the enemy base, but danger was still close. Every crack of a branch, every flutter of leaves made Eli turn his head. He hadn't slept in over a day, but he couldn't let his guard down. Zero slowly opened her eyes and looked at him. You didn't run away, she whispered. Eli gave her a tired smile. No, he said, I stayed. She sat up weakly, her silver hair glowing faintly in the firelight. I need to tell you something, she said. Eli moved closer. I'm listening. Zaro looked down at her hands. I wasn't supposed to survive, she said. My father was a rebel in secret. He hated the warlords who controlled our people. He knew they used mind control machines to control the soldiers and the leaders. Eli nodded slowly. We've seen strange tech in battle, he said. They fight like puppets sometimes. Zaro nodded. My father found a way to break that control, she said. He created a signal, a virus hidden in genetic code. He put it inside me. Eli leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You have the key to stop the war. Yes, she said, but there's more. Zaro and LT Unk and GT hands shook as she spoke. The code is locked deep, she said. It only reacts to human DNA. I must sync with a human mind to wake it. That's why I said I'd warm your bed, she whispered, ashamed. It wasn't only survival, it was part of the bonding. Eli was quiet. She thought he was angry, but he was only thinking. So this bond, he said. What does it mean? It's not just physical, she said. It's emotional, mental, even spiritual. Once the connection is made, I can channel the code into your mind, then you can send it out using your tech. Eli looked at the communicator on his wrist. Still dead, still useless, but maybe, just maybe, they could reach a human outpost. Will it hurt you? He asked. Yes, she whispered. A lot, but if I don't do it, millions more will die. Eli moved beside her. You don't have to do this, he said. Zara looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes. I want to, she said, because you're the first one who treated me like a person. A long silence followed. The fire cracked and popped gently. The stars above seemed to shimmer brighter. I don't know what this bond will do to me, Eli said, But if it means ending the war, I'll do it. Zaro leaned against him, her body cold but her heart beating fast. Thank you, she whispered. Just hold me for a little while. He wrapped his arms around her, not out of duty, but because he wanted to. There was something about her, something broken, but brave, and something about him, something tired but kind. In that moment, they were no longer soldier and alien. They were two souls trying to stop a nightmare together. Suddenly, a noise in the distance, sharp and mechanical. Eli grabbed his rifle and pulled Zaro behind the tree. He scanned the shadows with sharp eyes. A drone flew past above them, glowing red in the dark. Warlord tech. They're close, Eli said. Zaro looked afraid. If they catch me, they'll rip the code from my body, she said. They'll use it to control more worlds. Eli's grip tightened on his weapon. Then we don't let them catch you, he said. He pulled out a small chip from his belt, a backup memory drive. If we bond tonight, he said, I can upload the signal to this drive. If I die, someone else can finish the mission. Zaro reached out and touched the chip with trembling fingers. So much death, she whispered. Just for freedom. Eli looked into her eyes. Then let's make it worth something. The fire burned lower as the night deepened, and in the quiet, two strangers prepared to do something that could change the galaxy, not with weapons but with trust and a bond that no warlord could ever break. Hunted across worlds. The desert moon of KTH-6 was silent at night. The sand sparkled under three moons, and the wind howled like ghosts. Eli moved carefully through the ruins of an old colony station. Zaro followed close, her hood pulled low over her face. Every step they took left a trail that could betray them. They had escaped the forest, crossed a Dead Sea, and stolen a cargo skimmer. Now they were hiding on a moon once filled with life, now just bones and dust. Eli scanned the area with his rifle scope. Zaro sat on a broken wall, coughing quietly. She was getting weaker. The bond had started in her body was changing. Faster heartbeat, higher temperature, noticeable leads. Each day the code inside her became stronger and more dangerous. You need rest, Eli said, kneeling beside her. She shook her head. No time, she whispered. They're coming. She was right. Eli had seen the bounty notice. Her face was now on every enemy terminal, marked as a rogue royal with stolen data, and him a human deserter accused of kidnapping an alien princess. Zaro reached into her satchel and pulled out a small device. It blinked softly, glowing purple. This is a tracker, she said, but I changed it. It now leads to a rebel contact on this moon. Eli's eyes narrowed. Can we trust them? Zaro nodded slowly. They want the war to end. Suddenly the ground shook. A deep humming noise came from the sky. Eli looked up. A massive hunter drone appeared above the ruins, scanning the area. He grabbed Excel's hand. Run, he said. They sprinted through the old streets, broken windows flashing past them. The drone fired a pulse blast, blasting sand and stone into the air. Eli ducked into a collapsed tunnel, pulling Zaro in behind him. Her breathing was heavy, her skin glowing more brightly now. She's heating up again, Eli thought. The code must be near its final stage. They crawled through the narrow passage until they found an old stairwell. Zaro pointed down. The contact waits below, she whispered. Eli helped her down step by step. Finally they reached a chamber filled with rebel symbols and flickering lights. A tall alien stepped out of the Shadows wearing rough armor and a glowing blue visor. You brought her, the alien said. Eli raised his rifle. Slightly, who are you? Name's Ryle. The alien replied. Leader of the Iron Dagger Cell, we've been waiting for her. Zaril stepped forward slowly. My time is short, she said. Is the beacon ready? Ryle nodded and pointed to a tall machine with a chair and wires. It will transfer your signal into the human network, he said, but it will drain you. Eli turned to her. Are you sure you want this? Zaril smiled weakly. I was born to be used, she said softly, but now I choose how. Before she could step forward, a massive explosion shook the base. The roof cracked and sand poured in. Too late, Rial shouted. They found us. Eli grabbed Zaril and pulled her behind cover. Enemy soldiers dropped from the ceiling, glowing eyes and plasma rifles ready. The chamber turned into a war zone. Eli fired back, taking down 2 in seconds. Ral tossed him in. Extra clip, protect her, he shouted. Zaril crawled to the beacon chair, blood running from her nose. She connected the wires to her arms, her whole body glowing like fire. Uploading, she whispered. Don't let them stop me. Eli stood in front of her, blasting enemy after enemy. His armor cracked and his arm bled, but he didn't fall. He wouldn't let them touch her. More drones flew in from above. Rao screamed as one shot him through the chest. Eli ran out of ammo and pulled his blade, fighting hand to hand. Finally, a loud hum filled the chamber. The beacon turned white hot and the soldiers froze. Zaril screamed as the signal burst out of her like lightning. Then silence. Every enemy dropped to the ground unconscious. The warlord tech had been hit by the virus. Their link broken, their control shattered. Zaril fell limp in the chair. Eli ran to her. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold, but she was alive. You did it, he whispered, holding her close. Her eyes fluttered open. Did it work? Yes, he said. You saved them all. Galaxy had changed in one night, but for Eli and Zur, the fight was not over. The enemy had lost control, but they still had armies, and both of them were still targets. They would have to run again. But now they had something more, hope. Love in the war zone. The cave was hidden behind a waterfall. Eli had found it after 3 days of silent travel through broken lands. He carried Zaril the whole way, her body burning with fever. She hadn't opened her eyes since the signal was released, and Eli was starting to worry that she wouldn't wake again. Outside, the war was changing. Across the stars, ships were falling silent. Soldiers were laying down their arms. The mind control systems were failing, just as Zaril had promised. But in the shadows, the warlords were still alive, still angry, still hunting. Eli wiped Zaril and LT Unk and GT's face with a wet cloth. She lay wrapped in a blanket made from scraps he had gathered. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin now glowed in waves of violet and gold. The code inside her was still active, but her body was breaking down. You said the bond would hurt you, he whispered, sitting beside her, but you didn't say it would tear you apart. His voice cracked. He hadn't cried in years, not since the day his unit was ambushed on Turgan 4, but now with this alien girl lying half dead beside him, tears fell quietly from his eyes. Suddenly her fingers moved, then her lips parted. She let out a soft breath and whispered, Eli. He rushed to her side. I'm here, he said quickly. You're safe. Zaril blinked slowly, her vision was blurred, but she could feel him warm and close. I thought I was dying, she said. You almost did, he replied. But you didn't. She tried to sit up, but her arms shook. Eli helped her gently. She rested her head on his chest. I saw everything while I was unconscious, she whispered. The warlords, their secrets. The galaxy, crying out. Eli held her tighter. You've done more than any soldier ever has, he said. You gave everyone a chance. Zariel looked up at him. And what about us? She asked softly. Do we get a chance to? Eli didn't speak. For a moment he looked at her, not as a mission, not as an alien, but as someone real, someone brave. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, he said, but I want to face it with you. Zariel smiled. You mean that? Yes, he said. You're not just a signal or a weapon. You're Zariel, and you matter too. Me? She reached out and touched his face. Her hand was cold, but her eyes were warm. In my culture, she said, when two souls survive death together, they're bound forever. Eli leaned in, their foreheads touching. Then I guess we're bound, he whispered. The fire crackled beside them, casting soft light on the cave walls. Zariel leaned closer, her lips brushing his. It wasn't a kiss of war or survival. It was quiet, gentle, and full of meaning. For the first time, she wasn't begging for her life. She was giving a part of it away. Willingly, they sat together in silence for a long time. No words, no fear, just two beings from different worlds finding peace in the middle of war. Later that night, thunder shook the sky. Eli stepped outside the cave and looked at the sky. Flashing lights danced across the clouds. He saw ships flying low, enemy scouts still looking for them. He went back inside and sat beside Zariel. We can't stay here much longer, he said. Zariel nodded. There's one more thing we must do, she said. We need to reach the signal tower at Blackspire Ridge. That's where the warlords store their override codes. Eli stared at her. That place is a fortress. I know, she said. But if we destroy the core, they can never rebuild their network. He nodded slowly. Then we end this for good, she smiled. And after that, he looked at her with a small smile. After that, I'm building a cabin somewhere quiet, and I hope you'll warm the bed, not because you're begging, but because you want to. Zariel laughed softly, the sound like a song. I think I'd like that, she whispered. In the middle of ruins and war, they had found something rare, not just survival, but love, the betrayal. The mountain winds howled around Blackspire Ridge. The ground was frozen and sharp, the cliffs rising like jagged teeth. Eli and Zariel stood hidden under a rocky ledge, staring at the tower in the distance. It rose like a black spear against the stars, pulsing with red lights and guarded by steel drones. That's the heart of it, Zariel said quietly. If we destroy the core, the warlords lose everything. Eli adjusted his gear and checked his rifle. How do we get in? Zariel pulled out a small crystal from her belt. This is a clearance shard, she said. Only nobles and high officers have it. It'll get us through the outer gate. Eli looked at her. Where did you get that? Zariel hesitated. My sister gave it to me, she said softly, before they sent me away. They waited until the patrol passed, then moved through the shadows toward the gate. XL's steps were slower than before, her energy low but focused. The bond had taken its toll, but she was still standing, still fighting. At the gate, two armored guards stopped them. Zariel held up the shard, her hand trembling. The red scanner beeped, then turned green. The gates opened and they Slipped inside the tower. The air was cold and metallic, walls hummed. With power and lights blinked in strange rhythms, Zarl guided them through tight corridors past sleeping machines and walls of cables. Finally they reached the control chamber, a round room, glowing with red light. In the center stood a massive sphere, the core pulsing with life. This is it, Zarl said. We overload it and it collapses the control system forever. Eli placed the charges while Zarl accessed the terminal, but then footsteps echoed from behind them. They turned and froze. A tall figure stepped into the room, armored in silver and gold. Her face was sharp, proud, and cruel. Zarl gasped. Sister. It was Valira, her older sister, once heir to the throne, now commander under the warlords. Zarl stepped back, confused and scared. You gave me the shard, she said. You helped me escape. Valira's eyes were cold. I did, she said, but not for you to destroy everything. You were supposed to deliver the code, not burn the system. Eli raised his weapon. You betrayed her. Valira smirked. She was always too soft, too weak, but useful. Zarl and LT Unk and GT's voice cracked. You used me. Valira nodded. You were born with the code, and I knew the humans would help you. I let you think you were free, but you were just my tool. Zarl stepped forward. Not anymore. Valira pointed a plasma blade at her. You won't leave this tower alive. In a flash, the room turned into chaos. Eli fired. Valira blocked, sparks flying across the chamber. Zarl rushed to the core and slammed her palm into the activation pad. Her veins lit up like fire. System screamed. Valira turned and struck Zarl across the face. Eli tackled her, knocking the blade from her hand. They fought with fists and fury. Blood hit the floor. Zarl dragged herself up, bruised and bleeding. She reached into her pouch and pulled out the last override key. Goodbye, sister, she whispered. She inserted the key and the core began to break apart. Red lights flashed, alarms screamed. Valira shoved Eli away and ran at Zarl, but Eli fired a single shot straight into her chest. Valira fell to her knees, her eyes wide. Shocked, Exor stepped back, tears falling. I loved you, she whispered. You never deserved it. The core exploded in light, shaking the tower. Eli grabbed Zarl and pulled her into a tunnel. As the walls cracked and machines died, they ran through the smoke, fire chasing behind them outside. The tower fell like a dying beast. The mountain lit up with flames. Zarl collapsed in the snow, coughing blood. Eli dropped beside her, holding her tight. You're safe, he whispered. She nodded weakly. We did it. The tower was gone, the override system destroyed. The warlords were blind, their control shattered forever. But in the flames of betrayal, Zarl had lost her last piece of family and gained something else. Freedom. Her final choice. The ashes of Blackspire Ridge floated through the sky like dark snow. Eli stood at the edge of the crater where the tower had once risen. Now there was only broken stone, melted steel, and silence. The warlords' signal was gone. The galaxy was waking up behind him. Zur lay in a recovery bed inside a small rebel ship. The medic said she would live, but just barely. Her body had burned most of its energy to release the override code. Every breath she took now was painful, slow, and fragile. Eli sat beside her, holding her hand. Her skin was warm again, not glowing, not cold, just alive. I thought I lost you, he said quietly. Zarl gave a weak smile. I thought I lost myself, she whispered, but you brought me back. Outside the ship, rebel forces were gathering across the stars. Mind-controlled troops were waking up, like dreamers from a nightmare. The warlords' network was gone, but their army still had weapons. The rebels now had one chance to unite the systems and end the war for good. A rebel commander entered the ship. He nodded to Eli. She's awake, Eli said, standing up. Slowly, the commander approached Zaril. Princess, he said, you've done the impossible. The galaxy is looking to you now. Zaril turned her head, her eyes calm but heavy. I'm not a princess anymore, she said. I'm just someone who wants peace. The commander looked surprised. They want you to lead, he said. They want a symbol of hope. Zaril looked at Eli, then at her hands that had once been chained, then wounded and now free. She took a deep breath. I won't be a queen of war, she said slowly. I won't sit on throne built on pain. If they want a future, let them build it without fear. But I will not rule. The commander nodded slowly. Then what will you do? He asked. Zaril turned to Eli. I'll go with him, she said. I've walked through fire, through betrayal, through death, and he never left me. Eli stepped forward, holding out his hand. You sure? He asked softly. Zaril smiled. More sure than anything. The commander saluted them both. You've earned your freedom, he said, whatever path you choose. Later, on a quiet transport ship far from the battlefield, Eli and Zar watched the stars pass by. No alarms, no orders, no weapons, just peace. Zaril rested her head on his shoulder. You were supposed to kill me, she whispered with a soft laugh. Eli chuckled. You begged to warm my bed. She smiled, eyes closing, and instead, you gave me a life. They didn't need a crown, they didn't need a flag. They had each other, and that was enough. As the stars stretched out before them, Zaril whispered one last thing. Thank you. Human, you didn't just save me. You chose me, and in that choice a war ended. A new world began, and two broken